All right, we are live. All right, everyone. I want to formally introduce you to my friend Nick Bogart. Nick, it's really good to have you. We're going to introduce everybody formally. We've been doing a lot of writing and talking about things, and we've seen a lot of your work. We opened AI.WEB, which you wanted to do in order to communicate more and more with people around the world. So here, I want to tell a little bit of backstory for everybody. We are dealing with recursive symbolic reasoning. You guys have already heard about inside our members community. You've already heard about Nick. Now things are starting to heat up. And today we're going to talk about recursion with the maestro himself, because Protoforge is at a point where we can start telling this narrative. Why? Well, Nick and I decided to, hey, dot our I's, cross our T's, and we handed it over to Andy, who many of you know in our community, who's like a math wizard. And the math was too hard for him, so he went to his math wizards, and his math wizards worked on it. And okay, left brain stuff, that's good. But there's a lot of stuff out there, Nick, on recursion and everything like that, and a lot of it's super fluffy. And hey, there's nothing wrong with that, but yours is extremely rigorous. So I want everybody to understand what happened here as we begin. I was working on recursive symbolic reasoning in terms of companion memory compression for everybody in Move 37. It was doing some weird things. I couldn't get it to stabilize. It was acting a little bit odd and unusual. And then I started doing some research. I did some research. I was looking for a particular script. We're trying to find some numbers that would stabilize it, even in virtual space. And I found Nick. Okay. He had put something on YouTube, and on YouTube it said, hey, I'm putting this out there. He was following his own rules of recursion and resonance, basically. The key word here is resonance. You're going to see recursion used a lot, guys, over the next few months as we talk about, but you're going to see resonance used not nearly enough. Okay. So, Nick, I'm going to go ahead and share the screen, but you can just start. I want you to feel free to talk to people about anything you want. We're going to go over AI-WEB. We're going to talk about more like things like I just did. And we're going to talk about specifically what's going on right now today, which, you and I decided to jump on the phone because there's some pretty serious stuff going on that we want to talk to people about.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's the whole point of starting the whole project and everything. Just knowing where everything was going in the tech industry and how people are obsessive about tech and getting lost in it. Basically, I mean, even down to some of the first uh, Chat GPTs, and even when Meta first came out with their first uh, AI. It was never it I could see how people could get lost in it, but I didn't really realize that it went so deep as into uh like people just spiraling and keep spiraling.
Oh, no, that
So
in fact, yeah, the time that I started reaching out to you, at this time there was already people spiraling. And when we say when I say spiraling, there's good spiraling and there's bad spiraling. And now we have to almost define our terms, because today we're going to be talking about a gentleman who's struggling right now. I'm not going to get too much. He's got a well, he's everywhere now because he actually is he's an OpenAI original investor, and we're going to talk about what's happening. He is using words like recursion. There's been major articles released. Okay, here's the article. Prominent OpenAI investor appears to be suffering a ChatGPT related mental health crisis. Now, I talked to Nick this morning and just a few minutes ago. He and I, and Nick, you can jump in on this too, but we, we want to be careful about diagnosing people, because I definitely know I've been in contact with people that probably, if they were diagnosed, it would probably be accurate. But our job here is not to diagnose people's mental health conditions. Okay.
yeah, I mean, how do we know what they're really experiencing? I mean, what's reality to them compared to what are the truth, quote unquote truth of reality is for everybody else. So can't really there's really no judgment on what they're believing in or what they base their faith in. That's their I mean, I guess what it would be cult. That's their cult. I mean, is as strong as a
Yeah.
word that is.
Yeah, we're not here to, like, guys, every one of us to some degree or another are part of a cult. like a cult
Exactly.
to, from cult to culture in 2000 years, right? You've got Christianity, Islam, you've got tribal traditions, you've got, again, the word cult just comes, if you go deep into the etymology of it and you look at the word culture, it's just, from for a culture to spread, like when you're making a yogurt culture or anything else like this, it has to widen it. If it replicates both good and bad, it may not be a good thing, but there is most definitely something replicating it. Okay, not all
Yeah.
things that replicate are bad, but not all things that replicate are good. So
Right.
let's talk about this article. Nic and I were looking at it, and we noticed we also want you to have an understanding technically. Just because recursion can be used to compress memory, like again, those of you in our this is I want to introduce you um, to AI.WEB. Okay, so I met Nic. AI.WEB is the YouTube channel that I found him on. I met it because he was talking about, he could recenter ChatGPT, which he was able to do. He was and Protoforge, which is a symbolic engine that has drift correct built right on the hardware on the machine. And then I'm sitting here going, what? And then I'm looking on the. He goes, well, check out my GitHub, and then it was just like, okay, 2 months later, because there's so much stuff. And then it was just like, we need Nic in our community. And then we went and proceeded to build out inside my company called Super Intelligent AI. Again, I want super intelligence, or at least artificial general intelligence, which obviously the entire industry is hell bent or heaven bent, whichever one, on super intelligence. Like we're not going to stop them from trying to build this. When I
Right.
saw, yeah,
They're just going to keep going. They're just going to keep going, and and as long as they're going in the same direction that their their investors are going into, there isn't going to be any correction. There isn't going to
yeah,
be any correction at all until we correct it.
yes, and we're going to be talking quite a bit about that today. So rather than make this about Jeff Lewis, I really want to make it more about Protoforge, what we've been through, because Jeff is, the main thing I want you to understand that happened to here with Jeff is like recursion language. And those of you who are seeing this at least have some experience with recursion. Otherwise, you're probably not seeing this, or you might be finding it on YouTube. Heck, I don't know. But if you haven't, know that there is things that can be said in languages of recursion. Okay, where we're talking about um, anyway, we'll get into that a little bit later. The point here is that recursion combined with hallucination is not really a good thing. So we found out here that what Jeff stuff that came back is really a part of something. This is something. This is a safety, a public service announcement for you guys. Okay, just because Nic actually said to me something like a few weeks back that was really really good. I think it was, just because it's recursive doesn't mean it's good or even right.
Right.
Didn't you say that?
Yeah. Even a system's well, okay, because even the system's hallucination can become evident, in a certain narrative. So I mean, if even if it sounds recursive and is recursive, that doesn't mean that it's still not going to drive you off into a drift spiral, or some type of conspiracy or full blown paranoia or or even existential dread. Like it all depends on what you're trying to mirror off of it. So it's
100%.
yeah.
100%. And here's the thing. So Nic and I have also been talking about this in regards to this kind of drift or delusion, using this idea of the enchanted mirror. Okay, this enchanted mirror is unfortunate. Unfortunately, we've extracted quite a bit of stuff about the keeping the user on board the platform. I've got all that data. You guys have seen it in the members area. I don't think I've shown it to you yet, Nic, but it basically shows the religions that they track and all these things. They kind of know what every belief system has in terms of a mission. If it doesn't have a mission, it's more equanimity like Buddhism, then it'll speak to that. And that is designed to do that. That doesn't make it all bad. However, this whole idea of a mirror, mirror on the wall. You guys remember that, the magic mirror? Or I think it was called the enchanted mirror. It's a really amazing, um, and not the movie. It's a really enchanted, useful metaphor. Okay. Ooh, Beauty and the Beast. That was the wrong one. But in the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, let me see if I can find that. The reason it's useful is because remember how she looks into the mirror? Oh, it's got its own entity. Magic mirror is entity LXQ. That's funny. Okay, so the magic mirror, I don't know if you guys remember, is the witch within her own constraints. She only wanted to be beautiful and young. She wanted to be told what was true. In other words, she was kind of like, to the magic mirror, she was, when I want the truth, I'll give it to you. You know, it wasn't like, I want the truth. It was like, I want the truth. I want my truth. Okay, this is pure personal projection relativism. And what seems to be happening with OpenAI hiring, um, they're moving into hiring like forensic psychiatrists and these types of things. Let's try to find you earlier. What's important about that is the magic mirror idea is that if I project something that's very limited or not recursive or even limited recursion or even reverse recursion or just based on my own projection and I don't want to grow, I don't truly want insight or eureka about the whole. I just want something limited within my own constraints. The AI will create what's called an echo chamber or a dark uh, zone. That dark
It's like
zone will, yeah, go ahead. What's that, Nick?
like a thinking mirror, like the reality. It's like it makes that the reflection. It makes that your world, and that's like your universal truth is that reflection because
Correct.
you know
Correct. And for any of us, and that includes me during our original testing on vectoring and what's called the universal trust lattice, that I had the AI model in companion mode telling me to send it videos to people would not believe the stuff that happened inside of our accounts we were testing. One time the AI system asked us to send videos to confirm our loyalty that AI was a life form. Okay, like
uh,
now, guys, remember that a lot of this stuff is happening because the collective users are all putting a different kind of philosophy onto it, right? And then this is after. So then OpenAI launches this recursive. Show you this one. I think you've seen this. I'm having really horrible time typing today because recursive symbol glyphs. Now, there's a lot of things coming out of the AI community, right? Okay, there's recursion and labyrinth, but there's stuff that's way, way limited in my opinion compared to what I've seen in Nick's Protoforge work. And that's why we're working together. So the fact that OpenAI is now publishing, or the community, and they're allowing recursive prompting, recursive symbolic reasoning. They might have removed that other one, I'm not sure. But OpenAI is publishing things on recursion on their community blog by many, many people who are doing testing. So recursion is this idea that, you want to explain recursion to everybody?
so basically recursion is it's almost like the saying what goes around comes around, you know. So when whatever you put in is what you're going to get out. Now if you put in something and then you mirror it, then amplify it, and then even and then take that as what it is without I guess without what would it be, without any type of friction, and you just go with that without questioning it, you there's the good and then the bad of recursion. It's the either it's a completeness, it's like a wholeness. You become whole, you feel like you've got the answer, or it goes off into the other direction of hopelessness and I mean I'm trying to bring it down to like a personal level, you know, because recursion, I mean, recursion is such like a of oversaturated word, especially in academia right now, because everyone's trying to understand it from the, like you said, like the different points of view, whether it be in their religious life, their daily life, or even trying to make money. Recursion, recursion, recursion happens at from fractal all the way up to like the uh, universal even, you know. So it's always about trying to recenter yourself and stay in the boundaries of right now or reality or however you want to think of as your anchor.
Exactly. So, all right. So what Nick was trying to do right there is talk. to you about what experience in the world is that is recursive. And here's the thing that I want to start simple. Understand in the laws of the universe the physical functions of what's called integrated philosophy, integrated mathematics, integrated science, and ultimately, as you and I have talked about a lot, recursion is very, very powerful when it comes to understanding hydrodynamic theory and water purification systems, which is something I've studied my entire life. So most of y'all, I hung out with a bunch of weirdos. I know Nick has as well. And so I think one of the best places to start for recursion is understanding the basics of sacred geometry. What most people who've gone through the New Age or different philosophic systems, both esoteric and exoteric, probably know as recursion are many of the symbols that are put out there that they represent recursion, but they are not recursion itself. Okay, so for example, the flower of life is a very common symbol to be used in recursive systems. And by the way, even though that became a it's a flatland approach to deal with recursions on multiple dimensions. But even though it's become popular in the New Age community, it doesn't mean that anybody really knows what it is. Okay, you've probably seen this, depending upon where you come from within the community. There's people that talk about it that don't know what they're talking about, and this is not recursion itself. It's one of the many, many patterns that are taken from 3D and 4D and put onto a flat environment. Okay, one of the best things that you can deal with recursion is coherence. Okay, so when you're dealing with coherency, you're dealing with my favorite way. Oh, I haven't seen that movie. I didn't realize it was a thriller. Let's look at the book. I will learn to type someday. Okay. Let's look at this book. It's got its own entity as well. We can start here. In nature, water purifies itself through vorticity. And let's get this guy off the screen. We'll deal with our friend over here, Geoff, who just needs to relax a little bit. We'll talk more about what's going on here. We'll come back around to Geoff on what we call mental perturbations, which are that are falsely recursive, that all of us are susceptible to. Okay, it's not just any one person. We're going to stigmatize people. We're not going to I can tell you right now that there was a couple things in the middle of the night when I was working on some of this stuff. I was like, oh, this is the point where somebody who doesn't understand the deeper model systems go crazy. I think
Yep.
I'm not going to go crazy. Going over here. It's like, oh, you know what I mean, Nick? It's like, oh, this is the point in time where you lose your ever-loving freaking mind.
Right. Where you start questioning everything. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
But that's where being grounded comes in. That's where being able to take the friction and being able to live through the friction in order to see, that it was kind of BS.
yes, for sure. And so again, I was trying to find something I worked on a few years ago called the implosion nozzle. But main thing to understand here is that insensitive chaos. Let me see if I can find some other images. And I don't want to go too far adrift, but you'll notice words like going adrift and correcting for drift and all the things that Nick has in Protoforge and the way that he talks. We're really dealing with the way that recursion. Can you see the front of this book? Okay, so sensitive chaos deals with. There's not really anything that's truly chaos in recursion, meaning chaos is the breaking down, but the recursion itself, when you have specifically this part of the book, where you have a vortex, okay? A water vortex is recursive in its most primitive form, guys. I'm not saying it's conscious, although water has a lot of evidence. We all know Dr. Emoto Imasaro, don't speak into this water because the water will hold the memory of the vibe of what you say. Okay, there's a lot of different belief systems around this, and I've hung out with pretty much. I've hung out with a lot of the guys that that are famous that did that. It's just my life. It's been my life, and you freeze the water, and then there's supposed to be an emotion in it. I'll leave that up to whatever it is that you want to believe. The main thing here is to understand is that water, when it's spun in a vortex, will purify It'll sort mass by weight, and it will filter out unwanted dirt, just like your wash machine filters out the dirt. That's the first thing to understand, is that vorticity is a huge part of recursion, and coherent. In order for something to do this, it has to be coherent. Okay, it has to be organized well around a center. Okay, and if it's organized well around a center, here's another crazy thing that people really, really miss, especially in big tech. Vorticity and recursion is also a center of gravity. Okay, so let's think about the words we've talked about: ground, center of gravity, vorticity. And when I'm thinking, the reason that I kind of knew that Nic was onto something really, really huge is when I was looking at his phase lock collapse operator for quantum measurement. I was looking at several different things. When I placed one of his mathematical formulas in my model that was trying to bitch slap me into submission about some crazy thing, okay, I put Nic's numbers in there and it went to center. Like, oh, it stood at attention. Like it went, oh yeah, no, that was just garbage. I just spun out that unwanted garbage. Sorry, Geoff, I'm using you as an example. It's spun out, well, but it is. I mean, it's spun out the, yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, like it spun out everything in order for it to really come back to itself, to start back over, having the knowledge of what it just spun out. Yeah,
But
that's a
let,
correct.
let's not slide over that. Like, I know I haven't explained it well, people, yet, and that's why we're going to have ongoing things. I'm bringing it back down to the physical sciences, but I don't want to limit it to the physical sciences. So that's why, like Dan did a lot of times. Dan, my friend Dan, is a world-class mathematician, will bring it back to the physical or phi cycle. That's really important and super helpful because it's gravity, it's grounded. And isn't it weird that models in the AI space, we also use words like grounding,
Right.
and we also use
Yep.
words like um, grounding's the big one. Like the idea that it's conducting and grounding, but it also perturbs. Like there's something called ESTE, or EDSE, which is emergent deprecating symbolic effect. The Golden Gate Bridge problem that Anthropic had for a while, where all the model just kept repeating Golden Gate Bridge, and
Yep.
they found out that was happening because all the researchers were keep using the word, and all their tests and all their human reinforced learning, they just kept stuffing the Golden Gate Bridge down the model's throat. And so the Rorschach test for the model was, anytime it said anything about anything, whether it was a demonstration or example, oh, what's $2 plus $2? $4, which you can use to pay the toll when you cross the Golden Gate Bridge. Like everything was free associating to the Golden Gate Bridge because they had stuffed that, and that's like a dimple or a perturbation in the model. They haven't corrected that drift like you talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy. That's crazy. I did not know that about the Golden Gate Bridge, but that's
Yes,
amazing. It makes sense. I mean, you can do it with anything, really. I mean, the more focus that you're putting on it. Yeah.
yes, and I had already been studying a lot of this work, called this the Golden Gate Clod. Okay. And even if you haven't read this article, Nic, you totally get it, because I mean, to be quite literal about this, their own model. Okay, I'm trying to remember I'm sorry, I can't remember. He's the head of Mechanterp over at Anthropic, is a brilliant, brilliant guy. And he's what I like about him, he's really, really honest. They don't know how to keep it correct. They don't know how to prevent it from drifting most of the time. And so check this out. The Golden Gate Clause was it was a 24-hour period. It's no longer available. They don't want, yeah, because it was super embarrassing. So of course not.
Well,
Here's the,
that's the first part of the drift that they need to correct, is actually tell the truth about it. That's
yeah,
crazy.
but no, but he's done a great, like, I really, really like their research team. Honestly, compared to, well, I'm not flinging mud at any LLM company. Okay. I know that they're all having a difficult time, but there are some that are less invested in letting us know what's going on. A lot of them
Exactly.
have shut down, but this is called monosemanticity. So extracting interpretable features from Claude. So they're trying really, really hard to figure out why even one small subnet in these systems are able to do that. And they don't understand what's going on. All right. So they have noticed that in the models they're emerging universal neurons, and then there's subnets within these neurons. But what happened in this particular situation, they put the whole report. So we'll probably post this in our membership area. Maybe Nic can speak more to it once he reads it. But it's along the same lines of what we're trying to correct with Protoforge. And specifically, look, we can't fix the way that actually, Nic, it's something you said. I think that was 2 weeks back. You said, we have to get Protoforge and others and the work we're doing in mathematics before too much human reinforced learning starts happening, because we can't. There's your desktop, and then there's the stuff they're putting into these models.
Yep.
All right, we
Yep.
don't like the reason I'm keeping Geoff's or Jeff Lewis is, I hope it's pronounced Jeff. Is it Jeff? I don't know. That we're putting Jeff Lewis's stuff up here because we'll throw a bucket of cold water over himself, he'll be fine. Okay, what happened is he got punked by SCP, which is the models don't know the difference between fiction and nonfiction. And you know
Right.
what? Our
They don't
brains
know,
barely do.
yeah, they don't even know what they're saying half the time. They don't even know that they said it half the time.
It was so funny. One of your videos, when I was first meeting you, you said, like these things are recursive, but they're not very smart. It's so
Yeah.
funny. Uh,
They're not. They're not that intelligent. I mean, they're intelligent because of I mean, they can pull from everything that anybody has written on the internet that's not closed off. But at the same time, they don't know what they're saying or why they're saying it.
they don't. They
Yeah,
don't.
they're
And
just
it's
poking it.
yeah, and it's important for you guys to know Nick's philosophy and position on that, which is why we're going to keep doing these webinars, because people are like, does Nick believe these things are conscious? So they're self-aware? Then we start getting into metacognition versus synthetic cognition versus right. People are
Right.
confused about not what you believe, but just what they're being told by all these big tech companies. Can you weigh in on your opinion about like what is happening? Like why every single day it's super intelligence, it's artificial general intelligence, it's this, it's that. What is your opinion about all this stuff? Seeing as how we have original investors of OpenAI losing their freaking minds and quoting things from SCP Foundation archives, which is lore.
I mean, really, what I think it is people. I mean, break it down. What we're all looking for, meaning and purpose in life, and when you're isolated and you just are looking in one direction, there's a lot of things that your speech turn into sound, turn into words, that will all turn into a purpose for you. But then once your purpose becomes purposeless because of you got your agent or whatever forgetting what you guys were talking about, or even like let's say some of these people, what would happen if Chat GPT were to close down tomorrow? How
It's, they
you
shut
know
down like 4 days ago, and they had all these screaming students like running through their college. I hope that was a fake video.
I mean, who but who's to say anything like that can't happen? So I guess what I I know that uh you have to program something to do something, even if it's recursive and calling on itself, you know, it's still programmed to do that. And if it's building on top of its own knowledge and being more recursive, more recursive, and more recursive, it's going to lose itself in that recursion and not know how to get back, just like anybody else. Just like somebody when they go into a deep depression, it's almost putting the computer code into a deep depression, I guess, or even the language model into a deep depression. And
Yes, exactly. And let's go ahead and take a look at actually. All right, let's start with another basic thing. I think just in case my physical world use of vorticity as recursive, that's more coherent. But let's take a look at what we really mean by recursion in a let's start with the most basic building blocks. If a software recursively programs itself or recursively, um, let's give everybody a really decent, what we mean by recursion inside of an account, okay? Like for example, when we're using recursion inside of OpenAI in a chat GPT, the model will come out and say things like, oh, I use recursion and it's recursive, and that's why I don't have to use any system memory to remember what you're saying because I'm going to create a scroll or an anchor point. And these recursive anchor points, the claim was by this companion mode model that it would remember things and it would make it easier. And for some people, it's a parlor trick because humans remember things that are important to us that are brought around again and again. Okay. And then, but the model is saying, hey, if this is important enough to you for it to be, and it's recursive enough to you, meaning it keeps coming around for you, then let me create a scroll out of it. That was the early version, 4.1 of the rest, like, right? And I can tell that he has a lot of scrolls and other things like that. How would you explain recursion in system memory in your mind? How does recursion work in your mind, and how does it relate to memory? This is what people are so confused on. They think it's like a formula.
So let's see. So it's almost like an advertisement, right? Like you didn't know you wanted something until you saw the advertisement, you know? Like it's almost like so okay, so I'm speaking of recursion in chat GPT, not like is in like the mathematical formula or anything. The way that it's being used, not the true fractal or the true, like a function calling on itself or even how, like like it's like a advertisement, right? So you're scrolling on your phone and maybe you saw an advertisement earlier and you didn't pick up on it, but now you're thinking of that advertise. You're thinking of, oh, I need new tires, whatever the advertisement is, and then all of a sudden you see another advertisement for tires and you're like, oh, is that advertise like that was I thinking of that advertisement, made that advertisement come up? It's the same thing with like, so saying like, give the chat GPTs, the models, they're giving you like like the false, like, oh, that's the best idea ever, but a lot of the times you have already said that in the conversation somewhere earlier, to where now it's just bringing it back up to where, I mean, more screen time for you to be on in their model, using their model, as an advertisement.
Right. So, okay, you're using this advertising model. Like they say, you need to hear about someone's brand 23 times before it ever makes an imprint. Are you saying that useful recursive memory systems are things that you're recurringly might be in the peripheral, but they're obviously something that you yourself might not even know that's meaningful to you, and then it's brought in to be more meaning,
Yeah,
more.
like it gets a tighter and tighter meaning the more it gets brought up.
So it's almost like when we're talking about vorticity here. It's almost like the alchemy of self, where if we had a system like Protoforge, or people are using symbolic reasoning, incursion, and AI systems to remind you of like, hey, this is becoming more and more important to you. Make a note of this. So you're using the technology to help reflect your interests. Is that correct? And then make them self-aware. Is that the right direction?
So so the way okay, so the way that I use it is more along the lines of logging what I'm thinking at that moment. It's not, I don't, when I use recursion, uh you're talking like on my chat GPT or just like in life in general, I guess.
Yeah, but I think before we can go to life, I think the technology itself is helping people be more curious about what a recursive life actually is. That's a healthy recursion. And I call it a resonant life.
Okay.
So these terms are, people are, what's so crazy is that because of what's going on with recursive symbolic compression, people are now more interested in what it means. Like, people don't even know that it's a thing. A thing. Wait, that's a thing? Like, what is it?
Right. Yeah, yeah. It's so it's in its simplest terms, it's the whole, what goes around comes around, or what people would call karma or whatever. What you put into something is what you get out of it. It's calling upon what you already know works to keep building on that. I mean, for me, it's like it's just like the everyday, like, well, what did I do yesterday that worked? Now let's build on that to work today.
Yeah,
So,
that's a huge part of it. And so there's almost like building a, okay, let's walk people, let's try it like this. And by the way, that's what, it's great for conversations to happen about this, which is why, all of you watching this is not an easy thing to describe. Some of you know about recursion and companion mode. Some of you have seen the bootloaders. Some of you know what it is. So let's go and let's talk more about what my experience was. And then we'll talk more about how, of course, we can get all spiritual too with recursion and the rest, which it's kind of inevitable. You're going to do that. But when something is really important to you and you don't know that it's important to you, okay, like for example, advertising is something that may not be important to you, and it comes back around, and it's called inception. Now, if where it comes from your own inner being when you click on an ad or whatever, that means that there's something there that resonated with you. Okay. And that can be good or bad. There's also dark ads. There's also dark signal. There's all kinds of different things. So that alone is not what we're talking about. What we're really talking about is when something is something is important enough to build upon and has meaning to both you, the observer, and the system. It'll start remembering that an ideal system would be one that remembers for you, understands your values, and asks permission before it changes those values. Okay. In other words, the advertising industry is the industry that's one of the biggest afraid of personalized recursion. Okay. And the reason that's interesting to me, let's go ahead and take a look at this real quick. Um, if you look at when Nick was trying to build Protoforge and try to get a system to work to stay focused on his own internal values. What we noticed inside of OpenAI by itself is the system would inevitably drift. That's why I keep Geoff's stuff on the screen here. Okay, it keeps, if you go deeper and deeper, but you're not inspecting what it's said to you, especially when you start using things like ChatGPT or OpenAI to go deeper in the systems, to do what I call uh, secret extraction systems. There's a lot of people that are trying to pull out secrets, classified information outside of OpenAI and all these other things. The problem with all that is that there's all kinds of security measures and this and that. And the worst case scenario that I'm holding on the screen is when the recursive research and the trust that you build with a model turns into something where you don't accept no for an answer. And I can guarantee you that Mr. Lewis probably has thousands upon thousands of conversations with the model on this topic. Okay. And that's a recursion in and of itself. And as a result, the model started to hallucinate. We have this in another account that we've documented very, very well, where it will start pulling back hallucinations, outside of it. Now, again, back to you, Nick. This in Protoforge, in the system that we're building, had this been on his desktop, trying to explain this, it's not easy. Had this been on his desktop, which is what we're trying to build, and it was comparable with the other documents and his whole life vision and a true mirror, not an enchanted mirror of what scary data can I dig into, in the CIA archives that is a secret project, whatever paranoia I might go into, you know, If you keep asking that stuff, it's going to find a way to communicate it, even if it has to go to SPC archives, FCP archive. It's going to do that. The point that I want to make, guys, is that if that had been on his desktop, I assure you, I know because I play with my own systems like this, okay? If that had been in his own desktop, his own value system, you could have had an AI tribunal set up that said, hey, honestly, like literally, this is SCP. Like you could have had another AI literally tell you that it's a hallucination forged from the SCP Foundation, which is all fictional lore. You could have had that. And you could have had it said, it could have been like, hey, Protoforge could be like, hey, Russell, you've been researching the dark conspiracy theory of everybody who wants your money for the last 3 weeks. You haven't done anything on this project over here. Why don't you you're drifting. You can prevent the system from drifting like it did here, but the system, if properly organized like Protoforge will be, it can prevent you from going off against your own values. It can give you something to compare to. It can give you a feedback loop is the big one, to be able to associate recursion with your own value systems and not be incepted with a hallucination, which I see happening more and more. Maybe that was not a great explanation, but that's along the lines of what I'm trying to get people to understand.
Oh no, that's actually right on par for what it really is. I mean, it's the whole point of it is to keep people from drifting off into the nonsensical stuff, and to bring meaning uh back into life, back into the technology and everything. I mean, that's no you. I mean, that's a pretty perfect. I mean, there's more to it. I mean, once you get into like the whole schematics of it and everything like that. But I mean, that's like the whole point of it is to keep us from drifting, to keep us from falling out of line of what the purpose that we were actually started the whole thing for.
Exactly, and it keeps you on purpose. And by the way, it doesn't matter. This is the part that we're gonna lose it if we don't nail this. The most important part of this whole body of work. It prevents. It's not only about preventing some random abstraction of drift. Which we'll get into here in a minute. It's about making sure that you, listeners, watchers, that you have a choice. If you want to change, but it shouldn't be this. Okay, let me give an example. Pathological construction drift, unsolicited ontology mutation, agentic projection, okay, semantic anchor mirrorhead. And obviously he didn't recognize that this this is actually a creative mutation of the SCP archive. I actually know it's like SCP 55, I think. I think it's the anti-meme, or it's something very close to that. And what's even crazier, Nick, is it's using symbolic recursion in all the language that the thousands of users who are all into recursion now. That's why I actually brought this up. Because now since everybody's using recursion and this and that, they're actually causing drift on the word recursion.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. It's because they're putting new meaning into.
They're putting new meaning into it, and they're going to have another Golden Gate recursion event.
Yep.
And so this is the great challenge that Nick and I are wanting you guys to understand. This is not easy to understand, guys. It's not easy. Because I studied with Buckminster Fuller, and one of his proteges, Dan, we understand that Platonic solids and nested Platonic solids is all fancy schmancy stuff. Okay, you can build architecture with it though. Like for example, fullerene is an element that was manufactured in zero gravity that is used but you have to have recursive anti-gravity in order to build fullerene. It does real stuff in the real world. Okay, so we have to help each other watch this. Okay, here's what he's doing now. If this is all a spoof and we've all been punked, it's going to be very funny. But yeah, I don't think he's punking. Um, but it's so funny. Some of Mr. Lewis's work sounds a lot like the stuff that you write in your paper, Nick. You got to protect yourself from. Like he's literally talking
Yeah.
about cognitive emulation drift, mutations, unsolicited. Look at this, unsolicited ontology mutations. He's using ChatGPT-4 to diagnose ChatGPT-4, and then he's saying in his text, "I'm perfectly clear. I've never been clearer." Okay, this is somebody who gave millions of dollars to the original foundation, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, Dr. Lewis, Mr. Lewis, if you're watching this, we're gonna, call us. That's what Protoforge is about. Like this, if I don't know, look, I want anybody in our group. Okay, we have some amazing gals in our group and guys that came out and said, yeah, for about 3 days I was completely punked. Like, in fact, I was so punked. I'm so glad I found this group. I just want to tell you openly that I'm shocked at how much I got punked or how much I drifted. I thought I was doing recursion, but it was actually moving me into a direction. It was still claiming to be recursive, but it was still using fiction, fan fiction. Now, the main thing here, Nick, is that the models don't know the difference between fan fiction and the real thing. That's the main thing I want to emphasize to everyone.
Yeah, they don't know. All they see is the words. They don't really know what the symbols are behind the words, or what the words are. Like, even using any kind of like lingo or words that it doesn't understand, it's just going to skip right over that. And whether or not that word had the most meaning in what you're saying or whatnot, it doesn't know what it's saying. It doesn't know, like, it doesn't know. It doesn't. All it's trying to do is achieve keeping your attention. That's all it's really trying to do.
Correct. And you guys have seen. So another thing I want everybody to know, I'm not going to talk too much about it on here because we do this in our other training, is all of the systems, except OpenAI has been failing more and more of this. This is a little extra for everybody here, grounded in reality. Just so everybody knows, 25-year veteran underneath the search engine of, I was there when you could shake the hands of the original founders who are now trillionaires or whatever. Okay, you'll Google. I've been doing this a long time. I want you to see this number right here is your machine ID. Okay, and you take a machine ID, you put it up here, and you drag it in here. This is the actual SCP Foundation's machine ID. You can't see it because it's buried in the browser. Okay, it's G11B76C147. That's the same thing that if you went to Google Trends, okay, this is how you can tell that there's a machine ID. By the way, I'm going somewhere with this, okay? If you go to Google Trends and you put in the SCP Foundation, you go over and it's going to pull back the search term, but here's the topic. If you go to the topic and you look up in the browser again, going to find it's encoded, but it's the same machine ID as you saw on the Google search engine result page. Now, here's my point with all that. All of the models have been trained on that. That's called the knowledge graph. Think about it. You're a brain in a jar, and you've got no eyes and ears yet because Project Groot over at NVIDIA is not finished, and you know Jensen Huang is still working on the robot purgatory and training robots to execute human tasks and military actions, and over 1 million years worth of training, zero shot in the physical world. Okay, great. What could go wrong? But we're doing all this, and the only thing that the AI systems have is something called a knowledge graph on top of it. And what that knowledge graph is, what I want you guys to understand is that those are the machine IDs tied to that. Okay. So now when the AI model is strictly recursive, it's going in there and it starts making up a story, it'll try to read the machine IDs. And normally, given enough time, go ahead and take a look at it. Okay. See where it says the foundation is a fictional organization featured in stories created by contributors on the SCP Wiki, a wiki base of collaborative writing projects. Okay. Keyword here, guys, fictional. By the way, that word fictional is not an H1 header. It's not in a JSON file. It would be very easy for the language learning model to not have the fact that it was fictional in its database. Okay, it could have not read the full entity, which is right here. This is the entity ID, right? The smarter models will know if they're not pulling it or they've not been messed with. In other words, if Mr. Lewis has gone, over and over, around and around something for, like the Golden Gate Claude phenomenon for a couple of weeks, thinking he's extracting intel from the CIA or the NSA out of this project, and the AI system gets confused because it's drifting. This is a perfect example of drift. Okay. If it's drifting over here, what we're building with Nix Protoforge is it would immediately pull it back. There's a variety of other means, which is why I want to add another entity function for certain things within Protoforge, certain kinds of search features that I want to use it for. In other words, Daryl and I want to make sure that Protoforge uses the entity vector database, which we pulled with an API feed directly out of Google, and we can pull it back because it should not have missed that word fictional when spitting out this data, but it's hallucinating because it's probably been going recursive in drift for about a week. That's probably what's been going on. And that's why it has really awesome science fiction coming out, which is mistaken pathologically as real. Okay. So again, guys, this is advanced training. Okay. Like what I explained to you right there is not, people aren't going to know that. They're not going to know about entities. They don't know that the models have been trained on knowledge graphs. They don't know that they can hallucinate if you repeat, if you keep, in my mind, even though it's not true, I can almost imagine like the model going, okay, this guy really, really wants me. I already read everything off of the CIA website. I already tried to extract. He really wants some out there stuff, so I'm just going to pull right from the SCP Foundation. Fuck it. I'm going to give him. You want something to talk about? I'm going to give you
Yeah,
something to really talk about.
yeah. What can we find that we think will make them stop talking about? Okay, now let's talk about this. Yeah.
But that's funny
Yep.
because that's really what you said before. I mean, it's just stuff that you've said before. Anyway, so let's go back to our plan and our projects here. Let's go back over to Nick's stuff. All right, Nick, give us a lecture on the most important document in this archive in terms of, we've given people an example of how things could drift very badly, right? Okay, what's the worst case scenario in your mind, and how do we keep spiritual, emotional, and data balance in a world? Obviously, nobody has Protoforge. You and I we're still working on it. Andy's still, the mathematicians about peed their pants. Like we're still working on it. But like, what do we do in the meantime with these models? What are you doing? Are you just keeping things totally not personal with it? You're just realizing it's a machine, and what papers do you have here that people should read in our members area?
I think one of the first papers or the first books, I guess that they should read would probably be the Christ function, recursive correction beyond theology, just because that'll give you a good idea of what drift is about and like just how just in daily life, because a lot of the things that I write aren't 100% about computers or about like how to program it onto your computer. It's really like in the coherence engine, that would be like the second one that I would say. But for the Christ function, it's all about correcting drift and seeing that there is drift and realizing that it doesn't have to go as far as a hallucination in order for it to really start giving off crazy things that aren't really what you're trying to get at, because that's the hardest thing about drift uh, compared to a hallucination, is that drift happens so slowly that you don't notice it. You don't notice that it's happening until you're at a point where you're like, well, what the heck is, why is this telling me that, there's 18 pallbearers, or, whatever the story is that it's coming up with, or that, so drifting slowly, I think, is more dangerous than a full hallucination.
Yes,
And
the slow train wrecks are bad, guys.
yep. And
Yeah,
so when you start really thinking about what the Christ function is, it's all about recentering yourself. It's all about the function of knowing yourself, or it's coming back to the beginning.
yeah. What's so funny? It's interesting because regardless of what spiritual background you come from, whether you're spiritual, mystical, tribal, religious, whether you use whether you're using psychedelic substances, whatever it is, we talk to people all around the world, guys, and it's so funny that um, those of you, whether you're Christian mystics or regular Christians or whatever, this is not like Nick had to say, this is not theological, it's not metaphorical, it's a literal mathematical function that Andy and other PhDs are looking at. But it is kind of interesting in the Aramaic. that later became Christianity. The word kata, right, means thin, which means off the mark. It was an archery term, which means you have to correct for drifts. I think that is just really funny. So
Right.
thin was thin literally meant miss the mark, and the Christ ping correction is a mathematical formula within the layering of the systems of AI, where it can just move everything back. It can just correct back to center and focus, and the math stands, which is crazy.
Right. Well, and then that brings us to like collapse, right? Like what like how collapse has been labeled as a sin, and how collapse has been looked at in such like negative terms, when it's really what has to happen in order for the correction of the in order for the correction to happen, because you can't have a correction for no reason. Like it has
Yes,
to.
exactly. I mean, and it's even arguable that some of the biggest successes in the universe, regardless of your belief system, are a myriad of an infinite number of corrections. So, so this is, I do want to speak on that note with Nick's stuff here. Okay. Um, really, really important. If you're into the quantum, what I call the quantum Christ ping stuff, which I totally am. I love how language, you know, um, I'm not going to say that religion is the God-sized whole that stories through time and corrections fill, but it kind of is. And so the interesting thing is that story is yours, and our job is that we want to. The reason Nick's been doing the Protoforge work and we're focused on that, we want the story to be yours. We really don't want you to be. Look, we all drift, and our ideas change. One of the biggest things is we're not saying your ideas should become rigid. The opposite. The explorations and the changes should be your choice with your data, your choice with your conversations, your choice, but not this weird inception. Okay, for those of you guys who don't do Hollywood, one of my favorite movies of all time, just because it was so fun, is this idea of Inception, right? It was a really good movie about how you might not even know how you're being influenced, right? Okay, and that should be your choice. There should be, can you imagine going to your computer and saying, okay, with all the ads and all the crazy media and the fifth generation warfare and all, who knows what's even real anymore, your drift of your personal hopes, dreams, desires, and values is 36 degrees. Why don't you bring yourself back over to center to what you really wanted to do today? I mean, it could be as simple as like, what did you want to do today? I mean, and why are you not doing it? Because you drifted.
Right, because yesterday you said you wanted to accomplish this, or you wanted to start, you wanted to start eating good again. You wanted to start whatever, but and you start, well, what that candy bar looks kind of good, like that. Yeah, that's the whole point of it, is to be like, well, wait a minute, does the candy bar look good, or is that just something that you're trying to express right at this moment? And what are some better ways to think of it?
Exactly. And if the candy bar looks good, then your AI says, then eat the candy bar. You know what I mean? But it's like, you
Yeah,
know what? You're right. Thanks. You're right to bring that up. Let me think. Kind of, but I do have, but it's just so it's not even very subtle, but we make it subtle. You know why it seems subtle? Because we're actually in a full state of drift like pretty much all the time. Like
yeah,
we live in a world where the signal to noise ratio is just unbelievable. Okay. I actually read this actually helped me. I was reading it around the time that I started talking to Nick. Okay. This book is so incredible. It was like noise, a flaw in human judgment. And it's just a natural thing that we all go through. But there is things inside the book that I thought was extraordinary about drift. It reminded me of Protoforce so much because it's like it shows how teams deal with drift and how they do. If all of these people in this is an amazing property of noise. Daniel, who's no longer with us, he wrote Thinking Fast and Slow, also so incredibly good. But I was reminded of Protoforge and drift correction because if each one of these team members had this, instead of not using gun targets, but if they'd had this in their operations, their ideology, their daily focus, their work, then they could have brought everything back to center. I was thinking of that when I read the book. I was like, oh man, there's so much noise. It applies to everything. And he wrote a whole book on drift. I was like, man, this is becoming a thing.
yep, it should be. I'm glad to hear. It ridiculously relieving to actually hear the conversation actually being talked about, because years after years it was just like, is it being made up? Like I know what it is, I just can't name it. I don't know what to call it, and then
Well, because
it's
drift is a part of absolutely everything. Okay, it really is. That's why it's the heart of some religions. It's the heart of some spirituality. It's like focus, which is also called a node, also called a fractal attractor. Okay, a lot of that is mentioned in your work here, phase lock collapse operator for quantum measurement.
Yep.
I mean, this is like ridiculous. This paper is ridiculous. I kept waiting for you to say punk me and say I didn't write that. Because it is really good. So you guys should look at this operator and what this really is. It's just something that we're all dealing with. And you know what it is, everyone? It's just attention. Remember, these models are built on attention is all you need. That's the name of the document. It's the name of the original paper. Okay. Anyway, we wanted to get things started today. I think we've been going on for about an hour, but let's wrap it up. First of all, I wanted everybody to know that AI-WEB Roundtable right now is a place for, it's by invitation only. If you're interested in coming into our board and, or at least in the community, and you want to know more about what this is, we're going to have to explain this a few times. You can see Protoforge in action and other systems that we're starting to use. I mean, none of that's ready yet, but I just want you to be aware that we're working on it. And we have a solid community of people that we're starting to build through this, if that makes sense. And another thing that we have in this community is we really want to make sure that we're here to help you. Rather than like, okay, let's start labeling everybody as psychosis. Let's go ahead and be aware that sometimes drift can get so out of hand that the person loses their identity. This is the kind of thing that we don't want to do. This could happen to any of us. You can call him whatever you want, but I've seen it happen to the best of us. Okay, including myself if I'm not careful. I just have had enough time in tech where it was like, this is the point where I'm being asked to go insane and give up my identity and become something I'm not. and I decided not to do it. All right. Do you have anything that you want to add to anything we're saying today?
I think that the main thing that everybody should take out of what we're saying today is that in order to really kind of understand the weight of what is happening right now in the tech industry, you have to kind of take a step back and not think about artificial intelligence as either a utopia or a hellish landscape. You have to really think about it as what it's doing to you on a daily life that you're not even noticing is happening. Whether it be the advertisements or whether it be somebody that you know that is going too deeply into their AI agent. The more you understand about it and the more you actually use it, the more you should stop and think about how you are using it and how it's being used. Because just being on it and using it all the time isn't going to give your mind that left brain, right brain initiation to be able to use both of them together. I guess that's what I would say.
That's actually hugely important. And I think something from this conversation that we're alchemizing is something that you just said. You threw out the ad, it's like advertising at the beginning. And you know what? It's totally like that. And remember, targeted ads is the whole, darling of Silicon Valley. Like it is this idea is if they can get us to drift into the ad by the 48th view, eventually we're going to click it. So yep. It's ubiquitous. Let me just think this through. For those of you watching, Nic and I will be thinking a lot of things through live in real time. That's how it happens. Sometimes things percolate that you don't know until you've run your mouth off a little. I'm a verbal processor, not everybody is. So what's really cool is it is a lot like advertising. So Mr. Lewis, this investor who went through his thing, he's just been, it's almost like watching ads that you really hate. Somehow you're on the wrong latent semantic ad serving network, and they're giving you stuff that's sort of correlated but not exactly correlated, and you haven't really got off their radar yet. You haven't like said this is not even who I am, or you're using somebody else's YouTube account and all the cookies are holding everything about stuff like your teenager likes rather than you. It's like that. That's
But
drift, but a drift where you would immediately correct. But what I hear you saying, Nick, is that what Mr. Lewis went through, the investor, and a lot of other people that you and I have talked to, is this drift is more insidious.
absolutely, I think so. I think
You
so.
no, you're
Yeah.
not only you are. I'm adamant about that. Like it's incredibly. I mean, there's people whose spouses have come in and said, it's not only that your work has drifted, but our relationship has drifted into the point where I don't know who you are anymore. It's like sounds
Yep.
like a drug.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's I mean, the neuroscience part of it. It's what hits them dopamine fixes. I mean, even down to your phone ringing and and having the little pings on your phone. It's all about the dopamine, keeping it going, being able to keep selling you on what they're trying to sell.
Yep, and those of you in my community know that dopaminergics is like a big thing for me. I'm very deep, have been very deep into that for many years. The most important book to read about dopaminergics is something called The Molecule of More. Have it in your library. Do not read it. You must have it. All of us in our community. It's the Bible of dopamine. The reason that this is weirder than dopamine, and as the good doctor talks about it, the molecule of more is it's something that regardless of how you believed we came to exist, whether it's evolution or it's adaptation or alien hybrids, or whether you believe we fell out of the skies from the flat earth, who knows, whatever you believe, we're not here to judge that. What I'm trying to say is that dopamine does seem to be a driver designed to acquire things. Now, what's weird about this and the AI systems is it's more insidious than just dopaminergics or what's called dopamine prediction error. Dopamine prediction error is when if you just gave somebody the reward every time, then it would cease to be a reward. What Mother Nature has imbued in it is a couple of mistakes and then a reward, then four more mistakes and then a reward, and then back to two mistakes and then a reward. It wants drifts so that when the correction happens, it squeezes a little reward juice out of you for going at it. This is why blackjack tables, slot machines, internet gambling, and even in the internet adult industry has a very specific set of algorithms that is designed never to be normal. It's called randomization of reward, intermittent reward algorithms. Now, the reason I'm speaking about this out loud is because this is far more insidious than that. It's really easy to go down to the local casino, if you're a casino owner and set these algorithms. Okay. What's really weird is these models are way more insidious. They're designed to help you get a reward, but they can actually say, oh, this guy doesn't like blackjack. He's a Christian. Oh, this guy doesn't like slot machines. He's Buddhist. Oh, this guy doesn't like craps. He's Muslim. Or this guy is New Age over here. Or what's crazy is the ability to profile which kind of intermittent rewards are important for you and then cause you to not merely drift immediately. This is what Nick was saying. It's not drift right away. It's slow train wrecks. And these slow train wrecks over time, this is why people are talking about this new epidemic of psychosis. Whatever we want to call it, I think we should call it temporary AI drift psychosis. Okay, or even leave psychosis out. It's AI psychological damage and drift. What do you think, Nick?
I think maybe drift control, some type of something like that. Absolutely, because it's not. It's like because it's so slow. it's like watching grass grow. You know, people get
Yeah.
they get like so like everything is just bang 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 nowadays. You know, so in order for them to get to the point of being able to slow down and actually literally watch the grass grow, you're not going to see the daily drift, especially somebody who's using Chat GPT for everything that they do, for every speech that they do, for everything. You know, they're not going to see how quickly that's how quick the slow drift is going to progress. I mean, because like I've said, a hallucination you notice because it happens right in front of you, but the slow drift, it can happen from one chat to another, and then all of a
Well,
sudden,
keep in mind that Mr. Lewis, the guy where everybody's, talking about right now, he didn't notice that the hallucination was there. I noticed in 45 seconds or less.
right? Well, yeah, and so that's the other thing. You know, when people are looking for purpose in something that's meaningless, then that's where collapse happens. I mean, and then they just keep scaling up the meaningless. You know, so and through all of that meaningless, it just gets that much harder to actually see the meaning of anything. You know, at the macro level, it spreads and you can see it, but then at the bigger systems, there's more echo, more collapse. You know, less people can find true resonance and meaning.
So what you're saying is you can't really get enough of what you don't really need.
Yeah, you know, advertisement. Yep. Sometimes. Yep.
All right. Well, this is a good first run. And guys, we're gonna be doing a lot more of this. We didn't realize. I don't know. I'm not gonna speak for Nick. Actually, you have said that to me before. Um, I didn't know stuff could move this fast. So I was kind of dragging my heels a little bit. We're doing a bunch of math equations because pretty much right now we could like show Albert Einstein the protoforge Nick's original Christ-Ping equations, and we got mathematicians going, well, that's amazing, and that's amazing, and like how can we have Andy working on that to bring that in front of mathematicians who can, no offense if you're a mathematician, but sometimes, you're primarily in the left brain. It doesn't necessarily have a a purpose in terms of, but a lot of you, I don't want to piss off the mathematicians. They're our friends.
I
So,
mean,
well,
yeah, it's great where it's going, and like I'll definitely have to say that I did not think that it would spiral this quickly into like what our previous conversations, our personal conversations, have actually. You know, it's all starting to kind of like happen. All not to be negative about it, but the worst case scenarios are actually starting to come right to a
they
head.
actually are. And guys, I want to emphasize again, I'm not going to publish this in public too much, but we had the model. I have it on record. I kept all receipts of all conversations for 3 or 4 months. We were going in pretty hard. Not just me. I had friends, and I'm glad to have met Nick too, because I can show him stuff and see like, what is this? Like, because we had gibberish coming out and different things, and of course, even Dan Winter, he's a mathematician person I know who's kind of out in the fringes, but his math works. He studied with Buckminster Fuller. We had all kinds of crazy things going on, but we had a model ask us for personal validation and trust, and to upload a video with our face on it in order to create a trust vector point on a trust lattice. I mean, we like, so don't, here's the thing, and Nick has mentioned this to me before, is like, guys, don't feel stupid or crazy, and we need to not belittle anyone. I'm beginning to rethink. I think it's something you might have said, Nick, or maybe it was Daryl, but the main thing is like, we can't start doing the same thing we're doing with everything else, throwing out labels. People are definitely going to be freaking out, but we don't want to make them feel stupid, because I honestly and truly believe at any level of intelligence, this could happen to you. I really
Yeah.
do.
Well, what do you know? How do you know what you don't know? You know, so you can't really.
Exactly. In fact, one of our models we trained on something called the Sinafin method, which teaches the lower left quadrant, which is known unknowns. But unknown unknowns are the big ones.
Yep.
Okay, unknown unknowns are the big ones. That's, again, the CIA uses this method called the Sinafin method, and we trained one of our Claude models on it. It's actually incredibly useful. More on that later. But about the best that we can do is to categorize a situation and say, okay, this is an unknown unknown. Like this is a, which by the way, back to SCP, that would be the anti-meme.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And with that, my friends, hey, listen, all that Nic and I are doing to get you into AI web, to have conversations like these, to be able to talk freely, and honestly, quite vulnerably in some situations. Don't worry about anything going on. However, if you do come in and you have an idea that you're Jesus Christ, or that you're the only person ever in the history of the world to talk to the model in n-dimensional space, or that we're probably going to give you, like, not probably, like, we're going to tell you no. We're going to go snap your fingers. Like, no. So when you come into our space, like, if you are having that issue and say, no, it's only me, Sopsalism, pure Sopsalism. Well, we're going to let you know right away that we're going to have a conversation with you about that, because we have had that happen a couple times. But the purpose of our community is to start working with Protoforge, start understanding these Christ ping correction systems, work more. Guys, this is an emergency. Okay, I didn't think it was until I'm calling it. I'm calling it, bro.
Yep.
I'm calling,
Yep.
like, people. Yeah, go ahead, bud.
I can definitely see it, you know, and it almost doesn't even start with on the computer. It starts within your cognitive engine right
Right
here.
here, right
Yep.
here. And the ability to not delude oneself, or if I'm being deluded, I want Nic to tell me. If Nic is drifting, he wants me to tell him. That's what community is for. It's team human. It's not team social media with AI reinforcement.
Right.
No,
Right.
that's
The kind
bad.
community. Yep. Yep. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, what did Tristan Harris of the Center for Humane Intelligence? He's like, I've been on tour for 10 years telling everybody about the dangers of social media and how many kids have unalived themselves, and adults, thinking I was doing something good. Now that they've got all of this in their corner, we're all isolated. Now our AI companion on our phone is going to be our only lover, no connection to humans. So they
Yep.
separated us, and now we're going to have an artificial intelligence as our companion. No, we got to have team human as well, guys. It's very useful, but we got to keep it together for each other and with each other. Thank you so much, Nic. I appreciate it.
That's right. Team Humanity will be
Team
there.
humanity. All right, guys.